People always say that you have to have money to make money, and that there's an extraordinary level of sacrifice on the road to success. So how is it that investors like us, who didn't start out with much money and who don't rely on banks and credit, how is it that we can increase our income and build our wealth in a way that doesn't require us replacing one full-time job with another while still enjoying the things in life that matter most to us? That has always been the big question, and this podcast reveals the answers. I am Carrie Lake, and this is the Investor Warrior. Hey everybody, happy Friday. Welcome to the Investor Warrior podcast show, or in this case, this is the live stream today. So this is a live Q&A. We want to see your comments. We want to see your questions. Today, I have on the show with me, Adrian Smude.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. First of all, I want to show off your t-shirt, but your name is covering your t-shirt. My wife buys mobile homes. Yep. I want to first know where that came from. I'm sure there's a story behind that shirt.
So I am a little different. I do not like to be the normal person. And whenever I was looking for a way to break the norm, I saw the shirts that's in black with the white lettering. It said, "I buy houses."
Right.
And eventually I came up with the idea of "my wife buys," partially because I know women are better for marketing. And it's kind of stuck there. A mastermind group I'm in, at one of the retreats, they kind of drilled me and said, "Get rid of this other branding that you have that's no good and stick with just this." And that's what it's been since.
So I was on your Facebook page today looking for a good headshot. I'm gonna point out one picture that I saw of someone in a Speedo. I imagine it's you, and yep. On your butt it said, "My wife buys houses."
Yep. Again, I like to be different. So.
And it was like a neon green Speedo, and I thought to myself, that is bold. And I like it. That's really good branding. You just walk around and you're basically a walking billboard on your bottom.
Yeah, it's funny. I did a closing about 2 years ago, and it was running late. So I was a little flustered because I had a bunch of things going on. And right whenever we finished and we were taking the picture, the guy asked, "Do I get a Speedo with this?" And he totally caught me off guard because I hadn't posted that much about that yet. And basically he was a referral from a friend that knew I had the Speedo and told him to ask. So it was funny.
That's awesome. So Adrian, tell everyone a little bit about you and how you got into purchasing and renovating of mobile homes. And then we're going to go into a lot of questions.
So I am in Plant City, Florida. We are the winter strawberry capital of the world. And I grew up here, and I moved to Sefner about 18 years ago. I was being evicted from a house I was renting with some friends, and a cousin of mine was a mortgage broker. He said, "Why don't you buy a house?" So I bought a house. Looking back, I actually only took $1,500 out of my pocket because all the closing costs, everything was wrapped in it.
Yeah.
18 years ago was easy to do that. And I was a hobby landlord. I didn't realize that at the time. And so it was a slow growth. We bought a few properties. My wife now, she was my girlfriend at the time. She was bankable. So I got her to buy some properties. I actually bought one at the top of the market last time, which became a short sale, which ended up being a very good thing because it made me very conservative. If I didn't get that hit on my credit record, I probably wouldn't have looked for more creative financing, and I wouldn't have ended up with mobile homes.
Yeah.
But we bought a few typical ranch style, beautiful houses. And then I thought about 6 years ago, we were too high in the prices. I was obviously very wrong, but that's what led me to the mobile homes. I just started listening to what I call the old gray hair, bald guys in the back of the REIA. They really don't need to be there, but they just enjoy real estate. And they all talked about mobile homes at some point. Either they own them currently or used to own them.
Yeah.
So I figured these guys know more than me. They've been doing it longer than I've been alive. And so I bought my first mobile home, and ever since we've basically been buying mobile homes, and currently we are selling our last site-built home. That home I mentioned was my first home.
Mm-hmm.
We're selling that right now. So it's been we're about cash flow, and that's what mobile homes are really about to me.
So you buy mobile homes on land where you actually own the land too, correct?
Correct. That's our main business. We have bought them in the park where we just pay lot rent and we own just the home. Those were great for our building stage.
Mm-hmm.
They're phenomenal ROI, but in the parks that we purchased, then they're a little more maintenance, meaning the tenants are more maintenance because we bought in a lower end park, which usually attracts a lower end tenant, and we had more issues. But we are out of those as of 2 months ago, actually. And
Okay.
they made phenomenal money, and I'm not opposed to going back to them, but I'm now trading more time. I want more of my time back.
Okay. Could you give me a case study on one of the mobile homes that you've just recently done? I'd love to just know, maybe from start to finish, like how did you acquire it, what the renovation was like, and then what the selling process was like.
So this year, so I think it was in February, we purchased one. We actually bought it from a wholesaler, which is pretty
Okay.
rare because a lot of the wholesalers have not understood mobile homes. And it was a 1974. It had a concrete addition that almost doubled the square footage, which that
Mhm.
really attracted me because it was done correctly. A lot of times when they put the additions on, where they put the roof in the middle, there's a leak there. This one they put a full roof over on both sides. So I really like that. It was on a double lot. It has a workshop in the back. So I love a blue collar tenant. That's just who I like to attract to my properties. And a workshop will usually attract a blue collar tenant. So that was another big thing that we loved about it. It didn't need a lot of work. We went ahead and put a roof over the utility room and the workshop because it was starting to look like it was about to leak. It wasn't currently. But we went ahead and did that. We had some electrical work to get done. So we purchased it from the wholesaler at $50,000. He made
Mhm.
$10,000 on it. I need to get my exact numbers done because, like most investors, I don't have the best bookkeeping. But I believe between closing costs and the repairs, we put about $5,000 or $6,000 in it, and we have it rented for $1,250.
Mhm.
And we probably from purchase to rent was about a month, and we had a lot of demand for that.
Can you finance a 1974 mobile home? Yeah.
Nope.
Cash.
Nope. Yeah, cash or private money. So
Yeah.
that one we actually did it with our private money lender. He's the one that sent me the lead. So he's on a bunch of wholesaler lists, and he wants me to buy some more so he can lend me some more money.
So how are you financing most of these mobile homes? Is it through private financing?
We use our own cash, private money, and seller financing.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of these sellers understand that they can't sell it to someone with bank financing. So they're already, from my experience, they're already kind of primed to bring up seller financing, or they're not like barking at the idea whenever I bring it up. So it's been a little bit easier in my experience than the site built homes.
And how are you marketing to mobile homes on land?
Really, the exact same ways you market for any house. It's just you replace the word house or home with mobile home.
Yep.
Our main sources of leads over the years, though, have been other investors and realtors
Mm-hmm.
because most of the time they don't understand mobile homes, and they also think it's not worth their time, especially realtors, because if a realtor has a $20,000-$30,000 mobile home, it's the same work. It's a $200,000 or $300,000 house, and they just want to help the seller out. So we've had a bunch of leads that way, and then same with investors. Like I don't focus on houses, so when I get a lead that's good for a house, sometimes I will wholesale it, or sometimes I'll just throw it over to a buddy and have him kick me back a bird dog fee or something.
Mm-hmm.
So I've just kind of made the name for us that we buy mobile homes and people bring us the deals.
So what is your primary exit strategy with these mobile homes? Is it to keep them for a certain period of time, rent them, and then resell them?
We really just want to keep them forever. We like slow, boring money. We have done a little bit of rent to own, and we've done one accidental fix and flip. And I say accidental because I bought it for a rental. I knew it was in a bad area, but I went ahead and bought it anyways because the numbers look great. I got a little greedy. And then I realized as I was going there that this is not an area we should be in. This is, I'm not strict enough for the clientele that's in that neighborhood. People were trying to move in with $400 on a $700 rent.
Mm-hmm.
I just really got lucky and made money on that seminar instead of losing money. A Canadian investor came in and they gave me an offer, and I ended up selling it within 30 days to him. I made a little bit of money. I paid my private money back more than I promised him because he was expecting a longer term.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we usually just buy them and keep them.
Okay. What are some of the things that you've got to look out for when you're buying these mobile homes?
So if they're older than a 1978, there was not a lot of code. So you have to kind of look out for everything. You're probably going to have copper wiring on the older ones. You're definitely going to have the particle board floors. So between the tub and the bath and the toilet, you're really going to want to check there, because if you just get a little bit of water there, and that's usually where the water damage comes in, it's going to be sinking in. People like to put their AC units in flat, horizontal, so they don't look ghetto, but really they need to be tilting outward. Because if they're completely horizontal, the condensation drip comes inside and it drips down the wall, and it ruins that wall and probably even the floor, subfloor before in front of it. The plumbing in the 80s, they used like a gray PEX piping, and that was pretty terrible. They always leak at some point. The older ones also are not the most energy efficient, so they're really thin materials everywhere. So even your doors and walls are much thinner. So you can't even go to every Home Depot or Lowe's and just buy parts for them. Some Home Depots and Lowe's will carry mobile home locks and some won't. But in Central Florida, we've got a bunch of mobile home part stores. We go there for most of our stuff. Really, it's not a huge difference in a site-built home of what to look for. I'd say really besides those things. And probably the other big thing is if it's an addition, it's most likely not permitted. I don't think I've ever purchased a mobile home that has an addition that actually they pulled permits on. A lot of people just kind of go do their own work. And you have to either be comfortable with that or check it out and decide if you can get permits. Because I have a friend that he purchased one in Polk County. It was 3 owners ago that did the addition, and permitting came in and told me I had to tear it down, the entire addition. So it's a risk that you have to have calculated in your numbers to take. At least that's what we do. We calculate all those risks in there.
Well, and you're getting these, you're having an inspector come in and inspect them when you have it under contract?
Not anymore. I will have my handyman a lot of times go in, my contractor go in to see if there's anything I missed. But I just kind of put numbers in it, like the one I just explained. The electric panel was getting a little warm. And so I just thought, well, maybe we have to replace that. That ended up not being a big deal. He just needed to put some insulation behind it because the walls are so thin. The sun was beating in on the back side of the wall, and heating up the electric panel. But it was good I put the money in there for it, because he found other wiring problems that some rats had chewed. I take the approach that I just run my numbers really good. So if I have some screw ups on my repairs, I go from a great return to a pretty good return. That's my comfort level.
So you're buying these homes based purely on return on investment and cash flow.
Yep.
And you're holding them long term.
Yeah. And, we do look at, I would say, the values a little bit because our private money will look at that.
Yeah.
But they always line up together. The value of them, unless it's a few acres, never exceeds what our return on investment we want. Now, if it's multiple acres, then the land value goes up more than the cash flow can produce, unless we could, subdivide it. But no, we're in a lot of rural areas, and you can only have one per acre or 2 or 3 acres anyways.
So you're looking for bigger parcels of land when you go in?
We bought anything, really. We bought anything from a 0.09 acre lot to, I think the biggest we got was a 1.25 acres. So we'll really look at anything. We look at a lot of the bigger parcels as well. So the bigger parcels, what we like to do with those, because they're more desirable, and if there's a home on it that is, we'll say, destroyed or really not worth fixing, we'll look to buy it for the land value and then resell it to someone that's going to put a brand new home on it.
Yeah.
Because the manufacturers, when you go get your home loan with the manufacturer, they wrap everything into the loan. The land, the impact fees if they're necessary, the well, septic, tree clearing, removal of the old home, putting the new old home or the new home in, raising the land. I mean, anything that needs to get done all gets wrapped into that loan. And so maybe it raises their monthly payment $8, $10, $12 if we make a few extra dollars on the land. And it's in such demand right now that people don't really care. We know that people buy on what they can afford monthly. So if I can charge a little bit more to make a profit in between there, we've done that a few times. And those bigger parcels are in huge demand because people want to live on land. I want to live on land.
We have a lot of land down there where you guys are, so I'm sure it's easy to find.
Yes, we've become a very popular area because the news articles have talked about Lakeland being one of the top markets to invest in. So then we get all the out-of-staters. But yes, we still are able to find stuff. There's still a lot of land out here. There's still a lot of properties. The bad stigma isn't really here of living in a trailer or mobile home. I believe you can live in a terrible property if it's a site-built home, block, wood frame, mobile home. It's all the neighborhood. It's not the actual home that's in it.
Tell me a little bit, talk to me a little bit about insurance on the mobile homes.
So,
why I'm bringing this up, right?
I know. You've dealt with this thing. That's a good question because I don't get asked that question often.
It's an important question because I want to insure what I own, right? And with mobile homes, that can be difficult sometimes.
Yeah, so it all depends. In Florida, it depends on what county you're in. Closer you are to the water, the harder the insurance is to get to actually cover the home. The last time that we got insurance in Hillsborough County, we were able to get it back in the 80s for homes that are in the 80s. And Polk County, I think we can still do that. I believe they changed that since Irma came through, was it 3.5 years ago? I believe they raised this to make it even harder to get insurance. So the ones that we can't get, and now we own a lot of them that are in the 60s and 70s.
Wow.
Basically, we can't get named storm coverage. We can get insurance. It's through companies that have not explained exactly how I'm going to get paid. But I know people that have gotten paid through them. They do the depreciating model, so I can't just get the cash. So I don't know how much I'll get if I have a total loss, such as a fire or a tree fall on it. But for me, that's really, I have to bake that into my purchase number because if I have a total loss, I'm not going to fully count on insurance giving me the entire amount. Like I said, the 60s and 70s, I haven't found anyone that will give me named storm coverage, meaning hurricane. And we just buy according to that. People will tell you, oh, you can just replace the home, which is true. If you have a 1960s or 1970s home, you can bring a new, or let's just say a used home on there. Let's say you get one for $5,000 or $10,000. you're most likely going to have to bring the septic up to code. You might have to bring the well up to code. There's a good chance you have to cut some trees down to get it down the road, or even talk to neighbors. The old home is going to cost you $2,000 or $3,000 to remove it. There's a decent chance you're going to have other fees in there. We've gone to move one once, and the mover actually messed up the mobile home that we were going to move on, so that became useless. You have to do all the permitting. So I find it hard to believe you can move an older home and get it all set there for less than $25,000.
Right. And then it's not worth.
Yeah. So
there's nothing.
It is a good backup plan, but you still have to count. It's not just a few $1,000s to get a used one on there to replace it. It's a good chunk of money.
So if I can kind of recap what you're saying, this is why it's beneficial to own mobile homes that are on land, because you have the asset of the land that you can sell aside from the mobile home. If you have a total loss, you've still got an asset there, versus if you're going to buy a mobile home in a park, the mobile home is what you own, and mobile homes are depreciating assets.
Yep. And there's a good chance if you have a total loss in a park, the park's going to ask you to continue paying that lot rent because you signed a lease with that park. And if it's 6 months into a year lease, they're probably going to want their money still.
Yeah. I have never bought a house in a park, and I probably would never buy a mobile home. I would probably never buy a mobile home in a park because I don't see the value of doing that. It's just really risky, and you're buying a depreciating asset with very high lot rent. Some of these places, some of them will go $400, $500, $600 a month.
Oh, I've seen them. They're above $800 around me.
Wow.
I also see them around $300. So it all depends. The $800 ones are getting a lot with it.
Yeah.
You're getting tons of amenities, which is valuable to some people. But you've got to be able to rent it for over $1,600 for it to even start making sense. And in the particular neighborhood I'm thinking of, it is an age restricted, and they sell for $40,000, $50,000.
Yeah.
When I can go buy some land and a home for that, it may not be as in a nice of a community, but like you said, I own the dirt then.
Right. Yeah. If you buy a mobile home in an age restricted park, you are putting yourself at such a disadvantage in so many ways. You're decreasing your buyer and tenant pool because of the age restriction. You're decreasing your cash flow and your return on investment because of the park fee. And then ultimately you're buying a depreciating asset with no appreciating asset underneath it, because you don't own that land underneath it.
Yeah. And there are some strategies that make sense for end parks. If you find the right park, that the park manager seems like they're going to be there a long time, they can be very high returns. I mean, really, I think our lowest is probably 70% ROI. But when you buy something at $2,300, if you have a few $100 screw up, that's a huge chunk of your ROI that can change. And a risk that we never thought of that just happened to us, and why we immediately sold 2 of them. The park manager said, we have new management, and they decided you can no longer rent homes in here. They have to be out of your name ASAP.
Interesting.
So we were kind of, there's nothing we can do. Maybe I could have fought it, but that's not putting my energy in the right direction.
So you also have control, is what you're saying.
And that's the biggest reason I don't like it, because I lose control, and I like to have control of what I'm doing. But they served us very well while we were growing. Like I said, $2,300, $5,000, you can be all in.
Yeah.
You can buy something as you're starting out. Or another strategy I like is if you are targeting mobile home parks that are still mom and pop owned, if you own some mobile homes in there and you're making them payments every month, you can build that rapport for the day that they want to sell, that you might be the first in to buy it. So, I like that strategy. I just haven't gone that route yet. I know people that have purchased mobile home parks because of the little deals that they had inside of it.
Talk to me about Tiedowns and what they are and why they're important.
Well, if you don't want your mobile home to become a hurricane missile, you want them intact. So in '96, when Andrew came through and blew away a lot of the mobile homes, they made the requirement a lot stricter. So
Yeah.
now it's 1998 or newer. They made the straps a little bit closer in. I don't remember the exact feet. I think it's 4 foot something for the straps now, and it used to be 6 foot.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, if it's older than 98, there's a really good chance they're not up to date unless the home has been moved somewhere. We don't typically update them because the insurance company that we use for the older ones doesn't require them. But if I get underneath there and most of them are all rusted away, I'm going to have them replaced because that's really
liability.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of times those older ones, they're starting to rust away.
Mm-hmm.
And you may have seen it before, the 1960s. It looks like they just put a ratchet strap in the ground, put it over the top of the home, and tied it down the other side. It's just this big metal ratchet strap. And that's how they tied them down a long time ago. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah. That is it.
You do want to make sure that they're tied down. If you're using an insurance company, if you're going to resell these, or if you're going to fix and flip them, you're going to have them updated.
Yep.
And that's going to cost you, I've heard anywhere from $2,300 to $3,000. It really depends on how large of a home because of how many you have to put in there. Because the new insurance companies.
The last mobile home we did, we spent $3,000 on. It had the tie downs, but they were 6 feet apart, so they were no longer to code, and we were flipping it. We were reselling it, and so we had to have someone come in there and basically modify the tie downs.
Yeah, and the skirting too, because the mortgage companies care about how big of a holes there are in skirting. I think it's about a quarter of a size, like a quarter a coin.
Okay.
And we don't, because we're keeping them, we're not as concerned with all of that.
Yeah. But if you're selling it, that's interesting that you said that, because I swear every time I go to a manufactured home or a mobile home, the skirting is in terrible shape. It's like, it's just a given that you're going to have to replace the skirting.
Yep. And if they even have skirting, a lot of the ones that we have no skirting or wood. And one reason I always tell people that you should have skirting, because it keeps animals from underneath there.
Yeah.
And we had a property that the neighbor's goat would get out and go underneath and tear up the AC and everything.
I can only imagine.
Yeah, so it's not just because you don't want code enforcement on your back. You actually want to keep the animals out of there.
Yeah. Interesting. A goat underneath your house, tearing apart the guts of the house, because everything is under the house in mobile homes.
Yep.
That is, the guts of the house is underneath the mobile home.
Which does make it a little bit cheaper to replumb it and run new electric, because as long as it's not a really old one that's been sinking in the ground, the contractors can get underneath it and they can run new plumbing and new electrical. And it's been a little bit cheaper for us when than a site-built home, because they have room to move.
All right, so let's talk about purchasing of mobile homes and how they differ from, and we're talking about mobile homes on land. So you've got personal property and you've got real property. We can talk about the differences between those two, and then how this differs, because there is some slight differences when purchasing mobile homes on land versus purchasing a home on a slab on land.
Well, I think the place to start is what you just said. There's a difference in personal property and real estate. So the first one I ever wholesaled, I didn't know that. And I didn't put in the contract that the mobile home was included. I was very fortunate that it was like a 1964 and it was not legally, you couldn't move it. It wasn't going to be moved. But I found out at closing, the title company's like, technically they could have moved this and didn't have to sell this. So they put in a little addendum right there that it was actually being sold. But yeah,
well, with the 1964 house, you were probably doing them a favor.
The guy completely remodeled it, and he's making good money on it. You know, that is a good thing about having a good title company.
Yes.
Is you want them to have your back on stuff like this. So whenever I get the agreement between the seller and me, I always ask them if they have the title or titles. So if it's a double wide, it's going to have 2 titles. A single wide is 1. And I either try to get a picture of it then or take the actual copy to the title company, because I just want to give them a heads up. From my experience, the DMV, which takes care of the title, is much slower than the title companies. So if they have to go and figure out liens that are on it, or they don't have the title at all and they need to get new ones, the DMV has just been slower than every other process of the title company.
Okay.
So I like to give the title company a heads up. Hey, this is what we're working with. And we have purchased without getting the title to the home. So technically, we only purchased the land, and there happens to be a home on it. You know, we wrote up the bill of sale, but there was no title, and we couldn't produce a title in any way. It's a negotiating piece, but we have that extra little risk that someone wants to come one day and claim they can take this 1964 trailer off of here, which they can't legally move. Basically, we have a risk of a headache. They're not going to win, but headaches are worth a discount. Sure.
And so talk to me a little bit more about retirement of title, because when we haven't done a lot of mobile homes or manufactured homes on our journey of real estate entrepreneurship, but the few that we have, this always came up, and it was always a little confusing in the beginning when we were purchasing these homes, was to retire the title on these older homes.
So we always retire the title. So what does that mean in Florida? At least it means you're taking the home and attaching to the land paperwork wise. It doesn't have to do with the straps and Tiedowns that we talked about earlier. It's paperwork wise. You're making it all one, which means you're going to pay property taxes on the home and the land. We always do that. We find it to be a little easier. It's less paperwork to deal with. I know people that will keep them separate, and they'll put the home in a personal property trust, and then they tell me they have vacant land, and that's what the county charges property taxes on, a vacant land, and they say they save money. I've just never gone that route. Everything we bought, it was already attached. I didn't feel like trying to argue with the municipality that it's separated. I like to take the easy route and have less paperwork and less work to do overall. So then I can not be at home and I can travel some more, because I like to do that over having all these moving parts everywhere. But retiring is just taking the paperwork and attaching it, and then it gets a little black sticker that you do not renew every year in the window. Right.
Well, and then it makes it easier to sell because it's all one package now.
Yep.
It just simplifies it.
I agree.
Yeah. So tell me about some of the lessons that you've learned along the way. I'm sure there's a few.
Yeah. So mobile homes like termites, or termites like mobile homes, I should say. You know, I didn't think of that at first, but they really do, because there's that old particle board in a lot of these older ones. And when it gets wet, it just really attracts them. So we always look for that. We've had to tint a good amount of mobile homes because of it. So we always look for any of around the window seals, partially because of the window units. So a lot of the older ones that we deal with, people put window units in it, and they don't have the full AC anymore. They tell me that it saves energy. I don't understand how it does, except for the fact that I think they're only turning it on in the room that they're currently in, so they're not cooling the whole house. And when they go to replace the floors, most people don't go and replace the entire house, and they don't make sure it matches up. So you have different height floors all throughout the house. We've dealt with that a lot. A lot of your older ones, the water heater is inside of a little compartment that you actually access from the outside of the home. As it gets newer, it's usually in the master bedroom closet. But that was a learning lesson, because I was like, this place doesn't even have a water heater. And then I found a little hatch outside on the first one I bought. What else? Rats, that's like any property, but it seems like we've had more rat problems recently than normal, and they chew through the wiring. We've had a lot of that recently.
Well, and that goes back to the skirting that we were talking about. Super easy to get in there if your skirting is crappy.
Yeah.
And skirting is cheap to replace.
Really
blows my mind when I go to these houses and that's like the first thing that you would want to replace, but it's just holes and.
So I tell people to spray weed killer along the skirting because most of the time they're damaging it when they're weed eating it.
Yeah, the weed whacker.
Yeah, so I just
Yeah.
tell them just spray some weed killer right on the edge.
Yep.
And then you don't have to deal with trying to not damage the skirting.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times there's still the wheels underneath, the axles, and the tongue. If it's an older unit, that all has to be replaced if you're actually going to haul it away anyways. Because people try to sell me on, oh, we already have the axles and stuff. They're not going to work, and they're not going to be up to code to actually move them anyways. Some people sell them for scrap metal when the prices are high as well.
Mm-hmm.
But if it's a roof over, which we've gotten a lot of those, that seems to be the upgrade for the roof, which we like that if it's done right. They just put like a porch metal roof right over the home. If it's the really old ones that have like this plastic looking, it's a TPO, that you can't put a lot of weight on it because the trussings are super tiny.
Yeah.
You've got to replace that with a TPO or put a new one on it. Or we've even done the white paint that they just put on. It's like a sealer. It lasts a few years.
Mm-hmm.
But crazy story-wise, I told you about the goat.
Yeah.
I mean, nothing that I would say is mobile home specific.
Yeah.
Maybe besides that, I mean, we buy a lot of homes that are like down a dirt road, and
So private.
it's very private. People don't want to be messed with.
Yeah.
The people that are going to move in there, they don't want to be messed with. They want to bring their goats, maybe even. But we have a lot of the similar stories. People think that mobile homes are this whole nother world and they're totally different. They're very small areas of it that are different, and most of it's the same. You know, if you buy a good home in a good area, you're going to get a good tenant.
I get this question a lot from people. Okay. What's the difference between a manufactured home and a mobile home?
So I
get this question a lot. So I want.
There is an actual year specific. I believe it's 1978, but the real answer is if you're buying it, it's a trailer, no matter what year it is. And if you're selling it, it's a manufactured home, no matter what year it is. It's all perception. That's the way I use the two terms. You know, we always say we buy mobile homes, but I try to use the term trailer anytime I'm buying, manufactured home anytime I'm selling, if I sell. We don't sell very often. Mm-hmm. So we don't go by the technicalities. We go by it's a little negotiating and putting it in.
Well, language, words matter.
Mm-hmm.
Language is everything. It's the same thing when you're negotiating a house. Is it a home or is it a property?
Yep.
Who's your buyer or who's your seller? Who is it that you're talking to? Is this their home that they've lived in for 30 years? Or is this a property that they're been renting, right? You got to know your audience and you've got to know the language to use.
Exactly.
When I'm buying a property. When I'm selling, I'm selling a home.
In the area that we have made our niche, which again is like the blue collar neighborhoods, the people don't typically want to deal with a realtor. It's like it's a bad word. They don't understand contracts a lot, and they're a little timid. And so we try to be very careful with that and really build the rapport. We actually just lost one because the lady didn't want a contract at all. It's a wholesaler, so we'll see if it actually goes through. But she told me that someone's coming with a 3-line contract. And I was willing to cut out a lot of stuff in mine, but I wasn't willing to cut it down to only 3 lines. I'm curious to see what it actually looks like, this contract.
I'm curious to see what a 3-line contract also looks like. Is that even?
Yeah, but you know, she did not want to go to a lawyer to read it, and she was concerned with being ripped off. You know, I built some good rapport with her, and I think if he wouldn't have come through, I think I would have been able to cut out enough to make her happy and me happy. Mm-hmm. But I get that a lot. People in my space just do not want to deal with a realtor. For whatever reason, they were brought up. It's a bad word, and I don't believe it is, because realtors do a fantastic job. Well, good realtors do. We know that most of them don't do anything.
Listen,
I don't want to
there are
bash people,
good
but
and bad in every industry.
same as, investors. A lot of investors show up at meetings and never do anything either.
Yeah. So I'm guessing then you're not running down to these houses with a FAR bar. You're using a very simplified contract.
Yeah, my main contract is one page.
Yeah.
And I have used the FAR bar. If they want it, I'll use it. I mean, I'll use almost any contract. If I use the FAR bar, most of it goes blank, and I just write in on the other terms. I write in everything there. But it's been a long time since I've used the FAR bar. We typically use a simple one-page, 12-point font. It says exactly what we both decided on. We talk it all through, and then we write it out. They read it.
Yeah.
And really, if somebody wanted to back out of one of my contracts, even if they legally couldn't, if they weren't just backing out for a higher price, I'm going to cancel the contract.
Sure. Yeah. You want to make sure that they're comfortable moving forward with you. Yeah, I get it. What are some of the things that you need to keep in mind when doing a contract on a mobile home with land?
As we touched on earlier, under the personal property,
yeah,
down right there, something to identify you're buying the actual mobile home with it. The best thing to do is to put the VIN and put either there's one for a single wide and two for a double wide. And if it is a double wide that's meant to be married together, the VIN will be the exact same, except for it'll have an A in one spot and a B in another. So that's how you know they're meant to be married together. So we put that down under personal property. If they don't have it, I'll put down 1974 single wide brown. I try to put down the best description I can so that it's at least there for whenever the title company starts asking questions.
Yeah.
And you can find it, you can find it in the legal description. If it's been retired, like you mentioned earlier, you can go to the legal description on the property appraiser and look up the actual deed. And after all the legal description, it usually says together with 1984 single wide VIN, have some type of description depending on how the title company worded it.
Yeah. I'm asking this question for a reason too. How important is it to use a title company that understands mobile homes on land?
It's extremely important.
This also, right?
Yeah, so I did learn this the really hard way, and I do have a property that the title work is a little screwed up because I bought it from a wholesaler. I didn't control the title company. I had just become very comfortable because I went to the same title company every time. And I didn't have to, check everything. So yeah, you want to make sure that they're going to either question on that about the retiring the title, and they're going to do that the proper way. You want to make sure that they're going to make sure that there's no liens on the mobile home title itself, because there can be a lien on just the home. We always ask for a bill of sale on top of all of that for the actual home. So nowadays, if I can't control the title company, I tell the title company I have to have all the title work 3 days early, and I send it to my title company for review. Because that's not my job. I rely on the professionals for that. That's part of our team.
Right. Yeah. We ran into one problem with a title company very early on when we started in real estate, and it was with a mobile home and land. And I think we ended up transferring it to a title company who was more experienced with mobile homes. And I have just found that with a lot of the mobile homes, and especially with older ones, you get a lot of title issues because it's been handed, the title has been transferred so many times and in wacky ways. And sometimes they're like, I don't even know what to do with this. Like, it takes some time to sort it out. Have you had that experience?
Oh yeah. I was excited once a few years ago because I did my quick search on the property appraiser, and I saw that the home and land had only been in one family name the entire time. So I got real excited. It took 8 months to close that property because they went through and transferred it from generation to generation. They did not do probates. They
Mm.
used power of attorneys and signed after the person had passed away.
Wow.
I actually found a packet from Staples of quitclaim deeds inside the home afterwards. So I mean, we had to get signatures for everyone wanted to sell, but we
Right.
had one of the sisters that didn't even think she had any claim to it anymore lived in London. Well, in London, if you send paperwork over there to get it notarized, their notaries actually give legal advice. So
Mm-hmm.
they didn't understand the paperwork because it was American paperwork, so they refused to even notarize it. So
Oh,
we had to wait for the sister to go to the embassy to be able to actually get that paperwork done. And we had to do 2 probates for that one, all to get it done.
and you closed on it?
Yeah, we closed on it. It took 8 months. It was a phenomenal deal, but it took 8 months with phone calls to London and all over the place. And we have, I think that's probably the craziest, longest one
Yeah.
that we did. She had it vacant for years because she thought it wasn't going to work.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, another actually one we did last year, we never even attempted to fix the title work because after talking to the owners, somebody has sold it to I think the grandmother or the mother,
Mm-hmm.
and then they never got a satisfaction.
Mm.
So now they have to go
You
try to
never
get
got a
satisfaction.
satisfaction of mortgage? There was a
Yes,
mortgage in
yes.
place?
Sorry, it was an owner finance that was just done between 2 people.
Right. So they paid off the mortgage, but got no satisfaction of mortgage to say that it was paid off.
And now she's passed away.
Right.
So now you'd have to go to these kids that don't think they have there's a right to a mobile home.
Yeah.
And there's multiple of them. And then there was another family member fighting over it. So we ended up, actually, they had it sold for like $60,000, which was more than I would have paid for it. But someone was going to move into it. So it was going to be an owner occupied.
Yeah.
And that's how they found out all this. Long story short, we ended up doing a master lease. So we're renting it from the people for 40 years, and we're giving them half of the net profit.
Mm-hmm.
So we rent it from them, we're taking care of the place, and then we sublet it out to someone else, and they're able to at least make some money. We do plan to go to our title company at some point. I was just waiting for it not to be so crazy and say, hey, how can we really fix this and do some type of quiet title or something? Because I think they've been paying the taxes for around 7 years now. I don't know quiet title, so I have to rely on someone else.
Yep.
But that is the plan, is eventually they want to sell it to us. But in the meantime, we'll both make some money, and then we'll find a way to buy it legally and get good, clean title on it.
Interesting. So you're doing some creative stuff on these mobile homes as well.
Yeah, I just look to solve the problem of the person,
Mm-hmm.
However we can.
Yeah.
That's one of the ways we do the owner financing a decent amount, because I will pretty much always pay someone what they're asking if they can give me the right payments.
Mm-hmm.
And if not, it's probably going to be half the price of what they're asking, because a lot of times they're asking what they feel is retail value. And so that's something we didn't touch on, is how do you find a value of a 1960s
Yeah.
and
How do you
70s?
find value? That is a good question.
I believe it's very, very difficult on those
I
old
do
ones,
too.
because who is buying the very old ones? Cash investors.
Yeah.
Not bank financing, and then you're having people owner finance it. If it's an investor owner financing it at an inflated price, or me buying it from a seller that I'm paying more than I can pay with cash. So
Even cash buyers, I don't buy old mobile homes. So even they're even limited to their cash buyer space, because there's a lot of cash buyers that don't touch old.
Yeah, which as soon as the financing possibilities drop, the price drops along with it.
Yep.
So I don't believe it's very easy to find a true market value, because the market is either cash buyers or inflated owner finance buyers.
Mm-hmm.
So there's not that bank financing, what I'll say, regular world.
Yeah.
It kind of skips that middle ground.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to try to dig in there and see who's actually selling it. Like, there's one community that I know that 2 or 3 guys buy them for cash and they owner finance them out.
Mm-hmm.
And so you'll have a tons of purchases at 20,000, and then you'll have tons of them at 80,000.
Yeah.
And people will tell me, oh, well, you can sell at 80,000. And that's how I eventually figured it out, because these guys, that was their exit strategy in this community, is to sell it on payments.
Yep. That makes sense. So you can get the value of the land, right? Because that's real property. So you can start there. I don't give a lot of value to mobile homes that are older than 1980. I just don't.
There's a value to me of rent coming in.
Sure.
There's a value to the person that's going to live in it for shelter over their head.
Yes.
And then there's a value to the person that's selling it, for whatever they think it's worth.
Right.
They hold impact fees. So if you're going to move a new one on there or build a house and there's a mobile home on there, it at least holds some impact fees, because around here, if you go a few years without anything on it, you have to repay your impact fees, and they just went up again. So there's value, but how do you really pick which one and how much it's really worth is a challenge, unless there's some really good comps. So we're buying to keep. So we look at what returns we want for the type of risk of the age and the area.
Yeah. Well, and then you can sell with tenants, long-term tenants in place, to other investors who want an established tenant with a property that you've fixed up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And some of our old ones, we don't have many of these, unfortunately, but I believe the land is going to be worth a lot to a builder one day. So I call those my lotto tickets.
It's almost like a way of land it's like a way of land banking, making money on this personal piece of property that's currently on it now.
And that's the most attractive part to me of buying a mobile home park.
Yeah.
Is banking a big amount of land that eventually will be bought out by a developer of some sort. But we haven't gotten that route yet.
Or turning it into an RV park, because RV is crazy right now. I mean, there's a need for RV parks.
And that's not an eviction if they're not staying long term. I think it's an injection. It's just like a hotel, because they're staying short term. So there's a little less of a worry if you have the worry of evictions. Yeah.
Oh man, this was all good stuff, and we could keep going. I guess my last question is, you mentioned you traveled a lot. I know when we first got onto a call together, you were visiting some family. You have really created a lifestyle for yourself, which is what I love. You're not replacing one full-time job with another. You're working hard, right? You're working smart, but you're doing the things that you love to do while you're doing this. Are you doing a lot of this virtually? Do you have to be there every day?
So when we started out, I didn't fully believe that you can do this real estate thing virtually. When I say when I first started out full time, I moved into it, and I happened to wholesale 2 properties while in Europe. I would stop at McDonald's and get on Wi-Fi and use my Google Voice. And I would have made more if I was at home, but I got to make some money while in Europe. And that really helped me go with the mindset that we set up our business to be geographically free, which means I want to be able to run it from anywhere. We use the cloud and all different technology. That home I mentioned and we purchased earlier this year, that was the first home I purchased without ever seeing it. I had a good friend. She drove by with my office manager, but she's very experienced in mobile homes and tons of Liz from REIA. So I trusted her. So she went by, she checked everything. She's the one that told me the electric panel was a little warm. And it gave me the confidence to put the contract on it with the wholesaler. And so we use our team to be able to travel. We don't do a ton of deals. I'd rather have the experiences and lifestyle of traveling, not a lifestyle of like Lamborghinis. And that's just our preference right now. A big year for us is buying and holding 8 properties and maybe wholesaling 25 or 30. That's a big year. We usually do a third of that is our average, because we're looking for really good deals that we can spend our time a little bit better on working on those. And yeah, it works for us.
Very cool. Well, thank you so much, Adrian, for all the information. We've got lots of comments here. Great information. Great information. Thank you. So thank you so much for spending your time here today with us. How can people reach you if they have any other questions?
Facebook is great. I like the messenger. You can also send me an email at adrian@mywifebuys.com. And those are probably the two best ways. Let me know that you heard me on the podcast here. So then sometimes I get all these new messages and half of them are crypto people. So I'm trying to filter out some of the messages these days. So I don't need a crypto person. So let me know where you heard me from.
All right. And you guys remember this will all be in the show notes for you. So thank you again, Adrian.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me. This was fun.
All right, you guys, remember, you are just one deal away. Take care, and we'll see you on the next one.